Here in Chapter 9, we're looking at another big part of the overall process of 3D animation production, scene assembly. When you're creating a production that you want to be engaging and entertaining, you want to avoid having one single long continuous streaming walkthrough of a shot. For example, if you're rendering an architectural walkthrough, making your animation one continuous camera move can be quite, let's say, boring. Within that one long camera move, you'll probably have a great many things that are really unimportant to the original idea of the production. It also creates a problem where you're rendering this incredibly long sequence with a single camera. You can have complications with tracking your keyframes for when you turn into rooms and when the zoom of the camera has to change to accommodate a certain viewpoint. Another issue is that you may end up putting your client to sleep or making them so dizzy with camera moves that they can't watch your animation. We'll look at the process of creating short scenes and then assembling those together into a more dynamic 3D production. The next time you watch a feature film or television show, count the number of seconds that a shot stays on screen before it cuts to another shot. You'll notice that on average they range from 3 to 5 seconds. Occasionally they'll run a little longer. At standard video playback rates, which is 30 frames per second, that would equal anywhere from 90 to 150 frames per shot. The advantage of creating short sequences is that they can be easily edited if there's an error or if your client asks for changes. These shots then get edited together to create your final production. Editing is a very important part of the process of production and in many cases ends up being sort of an afterthought. One thing that's important to understand about editing is the idea that editing is all about timing and transitions. The majority of your transitions should be cuts from scene to scene. Again, if you watch most Hollywood films, the majority of transitions are simple cuts. Use other transitions only when you need them. Most importantly, editing together short shots with proper timing and limitation on the use of transitions keeps the viewer's attention and adds a little more interest to the final production. Another time-saving technique is called compositing, meaning that you create your 3D production using layers of visual information. These layers can then be superimposed over each other to build up a final completed image, or they can be used to overlay elements on top of a finished production such as titles and callouts. Compositing can help us simplify the overall production process. Let's say we have a scene that has lots of complex objects in it, lots of complex lighting, and then text that's going to have the company's name and logo fly in at the end of the scene. If we created the animation all as one scene, the overall rendering time could be fairly long, and if we had to edit any particular aspect of that animation, it would be a fairly difficult task. However, by compositing different layers together, we can reduce the render times and make it easier to work on a project. Here's an example. Take our lab, for instance. In the beaker animation that was created earlier, the only thing moving in the scene are the two beakers. The camera is static and the lighting is static. Therefore, we can render the background as a single frame, then render just the animation of the two beakers without the remaining elements of the scene and significantly reduce our render time. We can then composite the animated beakers over the still background and end up with a completed animation. Not only did this save a tremendous amount of time, it now offers a level of flexibility that we didn't have before. To accomplish the compositing that we're going to do, we're going to take a look at Autodesk Composite software package. Autodesk Composite is a powerful yet easy to use compositing application that provides you the tools you need to composite the images and animations that you render from 3ds Max. When you look at most feature films that are created today, nearly all of them use some sort of compositing. Especially when you're talking about special effects heavy movies, you may be talking about 40, 50, or even 100 or more layers for one shot. You will learn to create a basic composition using a background layer and then having informational text come in on top of the animated background.